The last thing that we're going to talk about for this chapter is the diversity that we can see in cellular life. So we've been talking about a cell as if it's doing one thing, but all animal cells are in fungus, they're in animals. Fungal cells are a little bit different. They have like a cell wall. Then we have plant cells. We have all of these different kinds of cells, and they do all sorts of things. Unicellular organisms use their cells in one way. Multicellular organisms specialize their cells and can even organize them into different tissues and organ systems. And so we're just going to take a little look at how we might use the cells within the body or how different organisms may utilize their cells. So first we want to take a stop at unicellular organisms. Bacteria, archaea, protista, they have one cell and that's it. That cell has to do everything. It has to take in the nutrients, it has to organize the proteins, it has to handle exocytosis and endocytosis, it has to fight off invaders for itself. That one cell has everything to do. It's like working for yourself, right? You work for yourself, you're your own employer, your own boss, your health insurance, your paycheck, it all rests on you. But benefit, you're not a part of any group. So if the group starts to fail, you just do something different, right? You don't have to worry about the failure of the group bringing you down, which, as you can imagine, is like what happens with multicellular organisms. So in that way, bacteria and protista can more quickly respond to their environment because they're only one cell big. What's good for that cell is good for the whole organism because the whole organism is only one cell. That's not the same for multicellular organisms. So these cells do grow, they respond, they transform energy, and they reproduce. They do it all themselves. And by the numbers, they way outnumber multicellular organisms. So if you were to think about just the number of bacteria, I mean, especially like in the room I'm in right now, I'm the only multicellular organism in this room, and there are all of these unicellular organisms in here with me. From protista to bacteria, they are definitely here. Even just in each individual room, you can imagine that you're outnumbered by unicellular organisms. And so then globally, of course, we are also way outnumbered by unicellular organisms. In a multicellular organism, the organism specializes its cells as it grows and develops. So each cell gets a different role in the body, just like working in a giant company or in a big organization. As the organization gets bigger and bigger, you might hire someone who's fully in charge of doing administrative work. And so they're answering phones and scheduling and picking up office supplies, and they're going to do all of the ordering and kind of tending to the office. Or you might have a different person who's doing the accounting and managing your accounts payable and collecting money and those kind of items. Or you might have a different person who does the actual work, who goes out and does the work and achieves whatever you're supposed to be achieving. And their money that they bring in pays for the person that's doing the administrative work, pays for the person that's doing the accounting. And you're all kind of, your destinations, your destinies are all kind of tied together. The same is true in a multicellular organism. So just some kind of small examples is that red blood cells, these red blood cells, their job is to carry oxygen. They have one job and one job only, carry that oxygen. You carry it fast and you carry it well. They are so specialized that they don't even have a nucleus anymore. They anucleate. They no longer even have DNA in the cell. Instead, they just know their one job, they're programmed to do it, they just do it. Pancreas cells that live in your pancreas and help to clean your white blood cells, they have lots and lots of digestive enzymes. So because they need so many digestive enzymes, they need a whole lot of ribosomes to make the protein, the enzyme proteins, and a lot of Golgi to package and modify those proteins into activity. Your skeletal muscles, your skeletal muscle cells have so much actin and myosin filaments in them in order to allow for that sliding filament, the contraction of your muscles. And then to use another example from plants, they have guard cells. These cells specifically swell and shrivel. Okay, they go hypotonic and hypertonic. They swell and shrivel simply to allow for gas exchange. Do we want to open up and allow carbon dioxide and oxygen to exchange? Or too hot and dry outside, do we need to stay closed, keep the windows closed? And so the guard cells have this one role. They get taken care of by the rest of the organism because they're doing this one particular job, which keeps the whole organism healthy. So multicellular organisms need to make these concessions. They need to maintain and communicate and cooperate in order to maintain life. That's why multicellular organisms take so much longer to develop and to grow up and are so fragile overall, because the death in one part causes the death in another part. And so the health of the organism is only as good as the health of the sickest cells. And so they really need to work together to keep the whole organism healthy. It's kind of a good analogy for life when you want to think of like the health of a community is only as healthy as the sickest in the community. So you got to be kind of reaching out and helping those in order to keep the whole community healthy. A lesson learned from multicellular organisms. So just a reminder on our levels of organization. So we have been talking about the cell, but cells now can combine and form tissues that do a particular task. So for example, a muscle tissue which contracts, or a piece of epithelial cell in your stomach lining that secretes hydrochloric acid and pepsinogen is another specialization. These tissues work together in order to form an organ. So the muscle cell and the secretory cells that make pepsinogen and hydrochloric acid work together to all be a part of your stomach. And then even that one organ participates in the organ system, which helps to accomplish a particular task inside the body. In this case, in this example, digestion. So it's important as we're studying the cell to remember that although it is the functional unit of life, as we zoom out and we zoom back, there's so much more to what's happening in an organism than just what's happening inside of the cell. Okay, chapter 7 on the cell is all handled. Next time I see you, we'll be talking about your review and what you're going to do for the assessment.